The cruiser's lights flashed against my rearview mirror, painting the interior of my car in alternating blue and red. My heart hammered against my ribs as I guided my sedan to the shoulder of Oakwood Drive, just 3 blocks from the hospital. I checked my watch, 12:17 p.m. My afternoon round started at 1 o'clock. What the hell? I muttered, mentally retracing the last few minutes of driving. No speeding. Full stop at the intersection. Turn signal used. Registration up to date. I adjusted. My white jacket, not my medical coat, just a light blazer I'd thrown on after changing out of scrubs for my lunch break, and took a deep breath. The officer approached slowly, one hand resting near his holster. Standard procedure, I reminded myself. Still, the gesture made my mouth go dry. License and registration, he said, not a question, but a command. No greeting, no explanation for the stop. I nodded, keeping my movements deliberate. Officer, may I ask why I've been pulled over? He ignored the question, sunglasses hiding his eyes as he watched me reach for the glove compartment. Keep your hands where I can see them and tell me what you're reaching for first. My registration is in the glove compartment. My wallet with. My license is in my back pocket. He nodded curtly. I retrieved the documents with measured movements, the way my father had taught me years ago. The way most black men in America learn to move around law enforcement, like you're handling live explosives. Dr. Marcus Washington, he read from my license, his tone shifting subtly. A hint of surprise, perhaps disbelief. He looked from the license to my face, taking in my braided hair, which I kept neatly maintained despite the hospital administration's thinly veiled suggestions about professional appearance. That's right, I said evenly. And what kind of doctor would that be? Something in his voice made the question sound like an accusation. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon at Mercy General. I pointed toward the hospital, visible a few blocks down. I'm due back for afternoon procedures in less than an hour. He handed back my license but kept the registration. You know why I pulled you over today, Dr. Washington? The way he emphasized my title made my jaw clench. No, sir, I don't. Your vehicle matches the description of one involved in a reported disturbance earlier today. I frowned. What disturbance? I've been in surgery since 6 a.m. I just left the hospital 20 minutes ago to grab lunch. The officer, Matthews, according to his nameplate, studied me for a long moment. Step out of the vehicle, please. My stomach dropped. Officer Matthews, I've done nothing wrong. I have patients waiting. Sir, I need you to exit the vehicle now. His hand moved back to his holster. 13 years of medical training, a fellowship at Johns Hopkins, and 3 published papers in the Journal of Thoracic Surgery. Yet here I was, heart racing like I was the criminal. I opened the door slowly and stepped out, the midday sun beating down on us both. Turn around, hands on the vehicle. This is unnecessary, I said, but complied. You can call the hospital. Dr. Levin is chief of surgery. He'll confirm I've been there all morning. Matthews ignored me, running his hands along my arms, sides, and legs in a pat down. The indignity burned, but I kept my face neutral. A passing car slowed, the driver watching the scene unfold before continuing on. What kind of car were you looking for, officer? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Black sedan, tinted windows. I almost laughed. There must be thousands of cars matching that description in this city. The report mentioned distinctive rims, he added, glancing at my factory standard wheels. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. Just then, his radio crackled. I couldn't make out the words, but Matthews stepped away to respond. I remained against my car, the metal hot under my palms, watching as he spoke into his shoulder mic and frowned. When he returned, his demeanor had shifted slightly. Wait here, he instructed, returning to his patrol car. Through his windshield, I could see him typing on his computer. My mind raced through the potential outcomes of this encounter. I'd heard too many stories, seen too many headlines. Every second that passed amplified my awareness of how situations like this could spiral irreversibly. 5 excruciating minutes later, Matthews emerged from his cruiser. As he approached, I noticed something had changed, a stiffness in his posture. Perhaps embarrassment. Sir, it appears there's been a misunderstanding. I said nothing, waiting. The vehicle in question has been located elsewhere. He handed back my registration. You're free to go. The dismissal in his voice ignited something in me. 3 blocks. From the hospital where I'd spent the morning saving lives, I'd been treated like a suspect based on nothing but a vague description and, I suspected, the color of my skin. "Officer Matthews," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained. "I'd like your badge number and the name of your supervising officer." His expression hardened. "I've already said you're free to go, and I'm requesting information I'm legally entitled to." I reached for my phone. "I'd also like to record the remainder of our interaction." Matthew's hand shot out, gripping my wrist before I could start recording. "That won't be necessary." The touch was firm, authoritative, and captured perfectly by the dashboard camera of the unmarked police vehicle that had just pulled up behind us, driven by a woman whose stern expression and formal attire screamed higher rank. Neither of us had noticed her arrival, but as she stepped out of her vehicle, Officer Matthews' grip on my wrist tightened momentarily before he released it, as if burned. "Officer Matthews," she called out, her voice carrying the weight of command. "What's going on here?" I didn't recognize her, but Matthews clearly did. The color drained from his face as he turned toward his superior, suddenly finding himself caught between a doctor demanding accountability and a commanding officer witnessing an encounter gone wrong. And in that moment, I realized this stop was about to become something neither of us had anticipated. "Captain Reynolds," Matthews stammered, straightening his posture. "I was just concluding a routine traffic stop." The woman, Captain Reynolds, approached with measured steps, her eyes taking in the scene with clinical precision. "Is that so?" Her gaze shifted to me, noting my professional attire, then back to Matthews. "And why exactly was Dr. Washington?" Stopped. The fact that she knew my name without introduction sent a chill down my spine. "You know who I am?" I asked. She nodded once. "You performed open-heart surgery on my father last month. Triple bypass." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "He's doing remarkably well, thanks to you." The coincidence was almost too perfect, but in a city this size, such intersections of lives weren't uncommon. Still, the timing was uncanny. "Officer Matthews," she continued, "I asked you a question." Matthews shifted his weight. "Vehicle matched a description from an earlier incident, but it's been cleared up now." "Cleared up?" I echoed, finding my voice again. "After being pulled over without cause, asked to exit my vehicle, and subjected to a search, all while on my way back to perform scheduled surgeries." Captain Reynolds' expression remained neutral, but something flickered behind her eyes. "Officer Matthews, return to your vehicle and wait for me there." Once Matthews was out of earshot, she turned to me. "Dr. Washington, I apologize for this incident. Would you be willing to explain what happened from your perspective?" I recounted the stop in detail, the initial approach, the questioning tone when he read my credentials, the unnecessary escalation to a search, and finally, his attempt to prevent me from recording our interaction. She listened without interruption, her face betraying nothing. When I finished, she nodded. "Thank you for your candor. This will be thoroughly investigated." "With all due respect, Captain, I've heard that before," I said. "These investigations tend to disappear into administrative black holes." "Not this one," she replied, her tone leaving no room for argument. She handed me a card. "My direct line. And I'd like you to come to the station tomorrow to file a formal statement. I have surgery scheduled until, name the time that works for you, and I'll be there personally." The conviction in her voice gave me pause. I studied her face, searching for signs of the institutional deflection I'd come to expect. I found none. "4:30, I finally said. "4:30 it is." She glanced at her watch. "You mentioned you have procedures this afternoon?" I checked my own watch and felt a surge of anxiety. 12:48 p.m. "Yes, I need to get back." "I won't keep you then." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Dr. Washington, one more thing. That camera," she pointed to her dashboard, "has been recording since I arrived. Would you like a copy of that footage for your records?" The offer caught me off guard. "Yes, I would." She nodded. "It'll be ready when you come in tomorrow." With that, she returned to Matthew's cruiser. The rest of the day passed in a blur of focused procedure and precise movement. In the operating room, everything made sense. Anatomy followed rules. Procedures had protocols. The chaos of the outside world faded away under the bright lights and steady beep of monitors. It wasn't until I was changing to leave that the adrenaline crash hit me. My hands shook slightly as I hung up my scrubs. "Dr. Levinson, the chief of surgery, Found me there. Heard you had some trouble today, he said, leaning against the lockers. News traveled fast in hospital corridors. Nothing I couldn't handle. He studied me for a moment. The board chair got a call from someone at the police department. Apparently, one of their officers had an unfortunate encounter with you. I stiffened. Is that what they're calling it? Marcus, he said, using my first name, something he did only in our most candid conversations. The chair wants to make sure this doesn't become complicated. The implication was clear. The hospital had its reputation to consider. And what exactly would complicated look like, Richard? Me filing a formal complaint? Speaking to the press about being profiled 3 blocks from where I save lives daily. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. No one's asking you to stay quiet. Just handle it with the discretion you're known for. I closed my locker with more force than necessary. I'll handle it how it needs to be handled. The next day, I arrived at the police station at precisely 4:30 p.m. Captain Reynolds was waiting for me, as promised. She led me to an interview room. That felt less intimidating than I'd expected, more conference room than interrogation cell. Before we begin, she said, placing a USB drive on the table, the footage as promised. I pocketed it with a nod of thanks. I've also taken the liberty of pulling Officer Matthews' record. She opened a folder between us. 17 complaints in 8 years. 3 involving questionable stops of minority drivers. No formal disciplinary actions taken. That doesn't surprise me, I said. It should concern you, she countered. Just as it concerns me. Which is why I've recommended administrative leave pending a full review of all his stops in the past 2 years. I blinked, surprised by the decisive action. That's unexpected. It shouldn't be. She closed the folder. Look, Dr. Washington, I'm not naive. I know one captain can't change systemic problems overnight. But I can ensure that officers under my command understand there are consequences for violations of policy and public trust. As I gave my formal statement, I found myself reflecting on the strange symmetry of our professions. We both worked in high-pressure environments where mistakes could cost lives. We both operated within systems resistant to change. And we both took oaths to do no harm. 2 weeks later, I received an official letter from the department. Officer Matthews had been placed on extended administrative leave and would be required to complete additional training before reinstatement. The letter included a formal apology for the unprofessional conduct during my stop. More surprising was the second page, an invitation to participate in a newly formed community advisory board focused on improving police-community relations, with particular emphasis on addressing racial profiling. I called Captain Reynolds. Why me? I asked when she picked up. Surely there are activists and community leaders better positioned for this. We have those voices too, she said. But we also need someone who understands systems from the inside. Someone who knows how institutions resist change while publicly embracing it. I thought about the hospital board's concern about complications, about Dr. Levinson's plea for discretion. The advisory board meets monthly, she continued. First Tuesday, 7 p.m. No obligation to continue if it's not a good fit. I considered my surgeries, my research commitments, the papers I was trying to finish. Then I thought about my younger brother, pulled over twice last month alone. About my nephew, who at 16 was already rehearsing what to say when, not if, he was stopped by police. I'll be there, I said. 3 months later, I stood at a podium in City Hall, presenting our advisory board's initial findings to the police commission. In the audience sat Officer Matthews, recently returned from administrative leave. Our eyes met briefly as I outlined new procedures for traffic stops. He didn't look angry, as I might have expected. Instead, there was something like recognition in his gaze, an acknowledgement that we were both caught in systems larger than ourselves, but that neither of us was powerless to change them. Captain Reynolds had told me during our second advisory meeting, real change happens when people who could stay silent choose to speak, when those with power use it to lift others rather than protect themselves. As I concluded my presentation, I added an unscripted final thought. The measure of justice in any community isn't how we treat the powerful, but how we protect the vulnerable. When those sworn to uphold the law fail to apply it equally, we all become less safe, less free, less human. Matthews was the third person to approach me after the meeting ended. Dr. Washington, he said, extending his hand after a moment's hesitation. I want to apologize personally for our encounter that day. It wasn't my finest moment. I studied him, searching for insincerity but finding none. I shook his hand firmly. It wasn't about that one moment, Officer Matthews, I replied. It was about all the moments like it that happen every day. He nodded slowly. I'm starting to understand that now. And in that understanding, however incomplete, however fragile, lay the beginning of something that felt, cautiously, like progress.